I am one of the key speakers, but now I'm the chair of the panel, a very important one, I dare say, about challenges for local fashion in the global world. And I'm very happy to welcome two teams. I see three people, so a full creative team of Didua from Spain. Hello, can you say that you hear me?
Hello, hello from Spain. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. Great. Thank you. So good to see you. I didn't know that you're going to be three. So great.
Well, yeah,
So,
well, there, Alfredo, I'm on my side, and Charles, they are the main designers. I'm also part of the
yes.
family, and I'll be doing a bit of translation,
All
presentation.
right.
So that's what we'll be
Great.
doing.
We're so happy to have you, really. Your brand is super. I'm going to go with the compliments on and on, but before, I'd like to welcome Monika Kędziora. She's a creative director of our Polish brand, founder and creative director, Acephala. Hi, Monika, do you hear me? I can't hear you.
And now?
Oh, now it's better.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay, so the technical stuff is working great. It's always the most stressful thing. So I'd like to proceed with the panel. My first question would be obvious, but I think it's very important to understand what we're talking about. So I would like to ask you, what is local fashion to you? What's your definition? Because, you know, there are very diverse definitions of fashion, and local can be understood in various ways. So what is local fashion to you? How do you understand this term? So maybe we'll start with Didua.
Well, for us, I think the term locality or rurality has to be more with where we're based and how we work. In terms of local fashion, I don't think, I mean, in the situation that we live nowadays, local fashion doesn't exist anymore. I think we can probably talk about global fashion with maybe local resources, local language, local concepts, and that's pretty much what we do. We are super local. We are based in a little tiny village in by the Atlantic Ocean in northwest Spain. But definitely our audience, it has to be global, and probably there. This is part of the topics that we'll be discussing later, but there's no way for a small brand to survive unless we can talk about global fashion. So I don't know, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit the other way around. I think to remain local, we need to be global. That's probably, in my opinion, the only way for small brands to survive in the current world that we live in.
Monika?
I actually agree that even if you're local, today you have to be global. And thanks to the internet, the whole community and kind of your tribe is always connected through the internet. But we actually live very local and work very locally here in Warsaw because we run our own store in Powiśla district in Warsaw. And our studio is located just behind the store, and we produce everything locally, mostly in Warsaw, sometimes in Łódź, but still it's in very, and we've got very close relationships with all the artisans and all the craftsmen who work for us. And but I think that we are also you can say that Acephala is a local brand because we often address Polish narratives, Polish artist narratives in our collections, and we try to address what's going on in Polish society, especially in Polish women's society, and what's important for them.
Don't answer all my questions yet. Yes, but getting deeper, maybe it will be the best idea to first go chronologically for you to tell me how your brand started, how it developed, how the idea materialized, because it's very interesting how to found a business that is risky, I would say, in this global fashion world, because it's based on the local context. So how did Didua come to life?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Alexander, just something. Our presentations will come later because we have prepared a small PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if
maybe it's a good time to yes, to display it. Why not? Of course.
Our president will be going through some of the details. I think it's a pity, especially for people that don't know the brand.
Of course.
A little bit of what we do, where we base, and how all it started. So if you don't mind, I can go through.
Yes,
that.
Go on. Of course.
Stop me anytime, because maybe at the same time that I go through the slides, we can you can stop me and ask me. Yeah?
Of course.
Well, basically, we're a small brand based in. So let me just move a little bit it's on my laptop. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful drawings.
Yeah, this is basically Galicia. Galicia is the most northwestern part of Spain, facing the Atlantic Ocean. Not so well known for, well, in Europe, I guess it's the fact that it's not so well known has kept the area very, very raw, which is literally what we really like. And where we see the red dot, that's where we base. So in a little estuary by the Atlantic Ocean. And I insist on this because it's definitely one of the main reference for what we do and the stories we tell. Yeah? And that, I think, in a way links back to your question, what means locality? And for us, locality means to really have a 360-degree vision of what's around us. And it has always been that way. I mean, I think now in our contemporary society, we talk about sustainability, we talk about kilometer zero and so on. But for us, it has been always that way. I think it's in a way, I think the trend has revolved on what we have been doing for the last 56 years in our workshop.
Yes, because I think it's very important for the audience to know that, you're going to tell everyone about it right now. Okay, so I'll stop.
This is our workshop. Again, as I said, the company started in 1965 by my parents, and this is the workshop where we work, meaning that we design and manufacture in-house. So everything we do is either made by us or by the community of suppliers that are nearby. So it's very, very close community of both manufacturing. As I said, we also manufacture and design in-house. As I said before, we are surrounded by very beautiful landscape and also very beautiful what we call seascapes. I mean, the fact that we are, a couple of 200 meters from the Atlantic Ocean, and again, for most in Northern Europe, Spain is known because of, I guess, the Mediterranean influence, but it's very little what we know about the Atlantic influence of the sea and the landscape in Galicia. And it's very different from what people normally understand. And as I mentioned before, the way we live, the way we eat, the way we relate to our community, it's a big part of what we do. And as I said, the fact that Galicia, it's a little bit underdeveloped compared to European standards, obviously has negative side effects, but it has also positive side effects, and the fact that everything is extremely raw, authentic, and I think it keeps its beauty. And as I said, probably now that we live through COVID times, as a society, it has been not just our discussion or our understanding, but I think it has become more of a global worry. I think how can we in a way, go back to basics and to really understand how nature can provide us, food can provide us energy in a way, without really going, as a society in the opposite direction.
You're underlying. Okay, go on.
As I said, what I mean by by Earth, obviously, as I said before, even the way we eat, the flora, the fauna of our beautiful estuaries, it's a very recurring theme on our collections as well. Yeah, this is an example of one of our coats, also in terms of inspiration by color, shades. I think it's something that we always take on board for our collections. And also tradition, as we probably familiar from in Northern Europe, in Spain, things we like, they're always shared, and it has been shared in the past, and they are shared in the present. It's something that it's very, very common in Galicia. And in terms of garment design, obviously, an underdeveloped area like Galicia, putting your best garments on you was also something to celebrate. It was either a Sunday thing on a form of sharing, and that's something that also we take on board. As an example, we wanted to put 2 images, and on the right side of the image, you can see that it's always, we're a bit ironic. We really like to take always think about the duality of things. For example, you can see that our garment, our prints, they always have a sense of irony on the themes that we touch. And same thing, I mean, not only the beauty of the Sunday garments or the festive garments, but also the beauty of the humble traditional garments that we can see in the traditional workwear, in traditional, it's something that I would like to take on board as well. And I mean, this image, I think it sort of represents that, how you can take that on board in a contemporary collection. I mean, the scenes are the same. I mean, the same location, the same, obviously, we're talking about a century apart from those two images, but I think the essence of is still there. And I think these two images clearly express themselves of how you can take those subjects and those topics from 100 years apart.
Okay.
And
family, yeah.
How this? Sorry.
Go on.
Stop me, otherwise I can go on forever, and I'll take the 2 days for myself. So just feel free to stop me anytime. Eh?
No, go on. It's really interesting and all in the subject.
So the question is, well, how this all started? 1965, my father, he started working as a carpenter. He was a boat builder, and he was absolutely obsessed with shape. Shape in terms of obviously how the boats were built. And at some point, he started to get into pattern making. That decade in Galicia, there was a little industry that was evolving, that was starting in terms of fashion. So he did start a little bit into pattern making, obviously coming from his obsession from being a carpenter. And obviously, in that decade, he found my mom. She was a dressmaker, at the time, very young dressmaker. Obviously, they thought, well, apart from love, they thought, well, what can we do together as a business? So they started the business at that time. And for a number of decades, they were the ones to lead the business, doing mostly mono products, really little collection, and obviously selling Spain as a regional. I mean, we have to take into account the 1960s in Spain. It's very, very different from what we can see today. So it was, again, the topic of locality was not an option. It was something that was imposed by those decades. But again, a very unexpected couple, and that brings us to another very unexpected couple, which are my friends and family on my side. This is Alfredo and Charles. They joined the company late 90s, and the reason why I mention an unexpected creative couple is because Charles, obviously being the daughter of my parents, she was always very involved in fashion design. And the time that Alfredo also came on board, being a graphic designer and an artist, the two merged together on what we can see today in our collections.
I think
but also on the side, we can have to take into account that everything started in 1965, and most of those initial co-workers that everything started, they're still working with us today. We can see a nice picture, I think, of Sharon, his first communing with our most senior co-worker, with his Carmen, in her beautiful green 1970s trousers on the left side of the image. And this is the current image of both of them working together. I think this really shows and tells the story of how we work. I mean, how we can have someone that has been for 4 decades working alongside a girl that just grows into the person that we have today. And obviously in the current situation, when we talk about outsourcing to different countries, always falling into the temptations of lowering costs, the temptations of changing garments to inferior quality, I think we can say we have the know-how, and we have resisted the temptations for 5 decades of going in a different direction of what we wanted to do. But again, to be able, as I said before, to be able to keep doing what we like, there is no other option but to be super global and have a wider audience. In any case, the point here in this slide is that the two unexpected couples have taken in turn somehow, but 56 years of craftsmanship still remain there. And obviously the result is what we can see here. I mean, the attention to detail, to craftsmanship. I mean, this is a current image of our, again, as I mentioned before, Carmen, our most senior co-worker, and how she can pass the baton and pass the knowledge to the rest of the team, but obviously being with us for almost five decades. And again, this is just a number of, in the same, the code that you saw before, the the amount of detailed bits and pieces that it takes to really have a garment like that. And every time you buy one of our pieces, you know that has been made for the same team. Is not going to change. So the fitting is always the same, which I think for today's standards is very unique. Have a consistent fitting, a consistent pattern making all across time. But again, that's only one part of what we do. I think quality and pattern making is super important, but the creative side of our concept it's also 50% of what we do as well. And as I said, the fact that Alfredo on my side and Charo has merged together, I think has brought the energy of always thinking, what was our concept? What's our idea? How we can trade the things we like. So this is like what I wanted to mention is that we spend a lot of time just drafting, prototyping, spending a lot of time into drafting those ideas in many different techniques, whether it's 3D prototyping, whether it's sketching. But again, it's probably we use techniques closer to fine art. In some cases, that techniques only used in fashion design. So definitely, it's a merge of those two worlds into one. So I just wanted to mention a couple of examples of what we mean by looking around us. And for example, in this case, remember the previous slides we talked about the seascapes and how we can bring that into our garments. This is an example of how we draw directly into the garment, which is very unique. I mean, with a number of pieces, obviously we did short numbers of production, but we do single pieces, and we love to prototype directly on the pieces. And for example, in this case, the image on the right, the back of the coat, it's an ink drawing with, based on the illustrations that Alfredo has drawn beforehand in this sketching process. Same idea. I mean, we just do work on field work, and we come back with all those sketches. As I said, we love to translate those into the pieces and use that collection as a storyteller. I mean, seeing the garments as a blanket or as a canvas to really be able to tell the stories, not only drawing, but painting as well. For example, this is a series of scarves we done, also painting directly on the textiles. Linoleum stamping, we sketch first, then we do the engraving. We prototype directly with the stamping, and then we do screen printing for production. But again, as I said before, the art and crafts techniques melt with production. Same idea, airbrushing, the old airbrushing from the 90s, the imperfection. I mean, when we spray paint into a garment, obviously, when we use a 0.5 ink, this is about precision. When we use airbrushing, it's about the imperfection of those templates. As you can see on the right upper image of a garment being sprayed with the negative and positive of the cutouts that we do with cardboard. And well, and obviously that as well, just giving it a twist to techniques like hand embroidery. I mean, you see images of hand drawing, but also, as I mentioned before, the old techniques being used in a way almost like graphic design. And we see the image on the left is the detail of how we do the image on the right. It's the flower, one of the collections that we've done in the past with the flowers that are grown in spring in Galicia, both literally the flower and also a little pocket to be able just to pick up the flowers and the reference in the pocket as well. Another important part of what we do is materiality. We select, obviously, very premium materials, but on the side, we love to do our own textiles. In some cases, from the image on the left is a collage from the stones that we have in our near beaches, and then translate those into screen printing. I think it's cotton, cotton dress. And also digital printing, and obviously we don't take me wrong, taking the past, taking our context as a reference doesn't mean that we don't think of current technology. In this case, this is also a digital print from the same flower collection that we did last summer or next summer. It's called Flor de Enamorar. It's the classic flower that the boyfriends used to give to the girlfriend before asking for marriage. So that's why it's called the love flower, Flor de Enamorar. And also jacquard, the old techniques as well, how we could draw patterns from the ones, as I said before, the ones that we sketched, those initial ideas being translated later into the garments. Going back to your first initial question, how can we survive into doing all the things we like in small quantities in a very peripheral part of Europe, and as I said, holding the temptations of organic working? Well, in the last 2 decades, we start basically doing pop-ups, art installation, and we were very lucky because we found a market that we love. I think which is Japan. I think it was 2010, we were asked to do an art installation in Dover Street Market. And the initial idea was, well, what are we going to talk about? And we thought, well, after a big discussion, we thought, well, let's just try and transport what we see on our daily life to Japan. So we came up with this idea of what we call the organ sound. It's an organ that plays the sounds of the fauna in Galicia. And because we love to draw what's around us, we did a series of workshops just drawing live into a series of garments that could explore the fauna of Galicia and the south of Galicia in Japan. So again, the idea was translating and being able to recreate our surroundings to the other side of the world. The experience was very nice for us. It was very successful because I think it opened the door to make this way of working permanent or periodical. So it forced us to think, well, can we, in a way it was like a series of concerts, every season think, well, how this can be translated in something that can travel and can be experienced by other people, initially physically, now with COVID digital as well. But again, I think it has forced us to think, well, our audience, that it's in some cases or in most cases, literally on the other side of the world, I think it has for us not just to keep this local, but being able to be transported to a much wider audience. As I mentioned before, by pop-ups, events, and we use also the same philosophy. We sketch and how this could travel, how it could be installed, dismantled. I mean, that's, in a way, that's my part. I'm trained as an architect, so that's the bit I do with them. And finally, just mentioning that after trying many, let's say, more flexible stores in the last few years, we were very lucky to set up our permanent store in Tokyo, which for us, it works somehow as an embassy, something where we can meet, something we can discuss. I think it's very, very important to have a base, a physical base on the other side of the world to really keep this bilateral conversation going back and forth. And I think the reason why we found this audience in Japan is because we share many similarities, taking into account that our culture is in a way very opposite. So I think the opposites meet basically by the interest on each other's culture, which I think we have kept that as an ongoing conversation, because obviously it couldn't be any more different than Japanese culture. We are about noise, we are about passion, we are about sharing, we are about many very different things from Japan, but somehow we do share a lot of common values that I think has opened a larger audience for us. And that's all from my part. Sorry to
No, it was great. It was really great. You produced beautiful, beautiful objects, and I have a lot of questions. But before I ask them, I must ask Monica to talk a bit about Acephala and the idea behind your brand, and what do you do also to introduce the brand to Didue and to the audience. So the floor is yours.
our history is not so long because we've been working for 7 years. The brand was founded by me and my husband, who is Bartek. And from the beginning, we are running the brand together. Actually, it came from, it's a story a little similar to your background story, because it was like, I am art historian and my husband is a graphic and sociologist. And we always wanted to work together, to do something creative together. And like one day we both decided to leave our academic careers and do something more creative and more brave. And then fashion came about. And when we started, we were just two of us, and I am the designer, and he's doing our communication, our online communication, and is like running the background of the business. And now, after this couple of years, our team became a little bit bigger, but it's still like quite small, because besides us two, we've got two more persons working for us. So everything is kind of mixing together, because you can say that everyone has his or her main job, but actually many things are like teamwork, and they are like the result of the discussion. And Acephala, yeah, sorry, I think I lost my track a little bit, but
No,
yeah,
go on.
We started like this 7 years ago, and what our brand is about is kind of hidden also in the name of the brand. It's called Acephala, and literally it means woman without head. But the idea was more metaphorical. Because I was fascinated with Georges Bataille and other French surrealists, and like in the 30s of the 20th century, he was running a secret society called Acephala, and also a magazine. And the main idea behind it was that if you lose your head, you go with your body, your instinct, your intuition. So you don't follow like very strict rules, but instead you create your own rules. And I love this idea, and I love this quality in people. And it's something that we want to share, that it's like the way of living that we admire. So you can like create your own rules and do what you actually feel, and what's it's honest about you. And it's also something that we try to follow when creating, when working for our brand. So we kind of also try to create our own rules. So and from the beginning, we wanted that Acephala was not only like fashion, but so it's not only about clothes, but it's also about more conceptual ideas. So we kind of try to explore different facets of femininity and work against stereotypes, sometimes address the stereotypes in like more ironic ways. So collection, like each collection for us is a story that we are trying to tell using the language of clothes. What else?
You also have the Atelier, which is the concept store, right?
Yes. The Atelier is located behind the store, but actually, like it's kind of expanding, because we live actually in the same tenement house as our store and our ateliers. So our personal and work life kind of mix, because many things we also create at home. And here is also like a Bartek's office. And we've got like our small photographic space where we do some of our shots also here. And our concept store, it was important for us to have the space to actually to be able to talk to people, to have a place where we can meet people. And it was challenging, and it was like something that we've learned a lot from, because as I told you before, like we were like mostly academics, and we jumped into fashion world. So we thought that we know what we do, but 7 years ago we actually didn't. And what I loved about fashion was like this conceptual aspect, and treating fashion as a communication tool. And as you know, it doesn't always translate into business, because like fashion, of course, is art and it's a business. So like these two qualities like combine. And from meeting with people, from meeting with our clients in the store, like from having this kind of a hub of and contact with other people, I think that thanks to this place, we grew to the place that we are here now, and I hope it will inspire us further.
Thank you, Monica. I would like to ask a question now and encourage people participating in the audience to ask the questions. I'll be able to see them in the chat. So if you have a question for our participants, then don't hesitate, please, and do ask anything you think about, considering the brands or the situation in the fashion world, or what being local means to you. Everything is really interesting and will be of value, because you know, I can't possibly think of every question that exists in the world, so please help me. Anyways, my next question will be about this translating part, because of course it's very interesting for people to get to know Galicia better, or Warsaw, but how to encourage them to actually buy the clothes, you know, how to, you know, put forward this idea that it's a good investment, that you really should buy this way, how to present, how to advertise. That's a really practical question. You mentioned pop-ups, you know, ways to showcase your collections, but how to actually make them buy, and what is your clientele? You know them, I think, after a few years. Were there some surprises for you, like Japan, you said, but I think Japan is kind of maybe not obvious, but I would think about Japan because it's the same spirit of minimalism, attachment to nature, appreciate of craftsmanship, and so on. But anyways, how to advertise the local to make it translate to the global? That's my question. Maybe for Didu, for Jose.
Well, for us, obviously with a brand, as I explained, going digital is extremely difficult, because the values that we translate, the storytelling that we want to tell, it really performs well physically. That's an advantage and a disadvantage, and that's the reason why I mentioned that. Yeah. We started and really focus on physical experiences, whether they are short-term, like pop-ups, long-term, like the store, where we can, as Monica, as you mentioned before, we need to talk to people. So basically, when you see one of our garments, you know that it's something different, but that's not enough. I mean, obviously, you need to tell, well, what's the story behind it, and that story needs to be told. And that garment needs to be tried. I think that's the two. I think it works at two levels. It's not only I like that piece, but what's the reason behind it? Does it really elevate me? Does it do something for me apart from just doing the obvious, which is keep me warm or keep me elegant? Or I mean, obviously, that's the reason why I mentioned that we have 50 years of that, of really good fitting, something that is really, really nice on you. but we are always looking for the extra bit. I mean, that story, that irony. I mean, for example, as you saw in the code, we're always trying and enforce the idea that it's that extra bit that's different from other pieces, or that it makes you feel for either that occasion, or if you're going to meet them. And going back to your question on what's the profile, I think mainly it's about people and persons that really are looking for something different. Definitely that they're looking for fast fashion. They're not looking, obviously our pieces, they're not economic, but we see them more as, or they see our pieces as an investment, not as something that you want to throw away. And we have many examples of people that have our codes for 15 years on their codes. And obviously we talk about Japan, but obviously in Spain we have a very close community because that's how it started. So I think it's more of a fan base, people that really want to know more about you. We can, as I say, in the same way that we have the PowerPoint, we have always something else to tell. So I think it's always going, pulling and going that extra mile with your narrative and with your garments. And as I mentioned, it's like I don't know, like in a way like music. What's your next record? What's your next story? So I think it does create a mood of knowing more, and obviously I have to admit that our garments are very passionate. You either love them or you go like, that's not for me, and that's not my type. But in a way, that's also good. I mean, it does create some sort of polarity but in that way, I think fashion is going through that same polarity. We have either
that will be my next question. Yes,
we all are close to big shop with £100 or €100 coat, but we're not about that. We're about the extreme opposite. And obviously we have to live together, but I think it has created a void in between. I think it's, in my opinion, the difficulty is either not to be able to be on those two poles, really about telling a story like ours or like yours. Otherwise, you go into production, into business that are based on profit. We're definitely a business. There's no question about it. But we're not only based on profit. We're based on value. We're about something else. And obviously, that's for the reason that we're still small after 56 years.
Wow. I'll keep my questions for later. Now, Monica, but I have a lot. Monica, please tell me, how do you manage to translate? How do you manage to advertise? Do you think that it's something that is working or work in progress? Do you see your brand translating for, reaching its people?
Like reaching people is always like very difficult, I would say. So especially if they are not fluent in social media. But they're like, I think that two ways of reaching people, or it was in our case. There were like one group, there are people who are intrigued by our campaigns and stories, and they're mostly like it's kind of based of fans that were like fascinated that fashion can can talk about like very important and challenging questions. And the other part is coming from like material experience. So I also, even if you like very hard on visual communication, I still think that the strength of our brand is actually like this physical experience of wearing the clothes. So that's why like this, like you said about the store, and that people have to like try the clothes on. So for us, it was our store, but also like different stores that carry our brand. And when we went out from like only like our small space and made it happen that people can actually try the clothes on, then was the moment that we started to find our clienteles and our clients. And we are we are lucky that our space is in Powiśle, which is like very tourist location in Warsaw. So like all the clients that we have, like from other countries, like many of these people are actually people who were in Warsaw and like found our store in here, bought something, and then they are buying online from the website. But I'm not sure like if we were able to reach them without this physical experience.
Mhm. Yes, what I noticed, and I think it's a great quality, that the way you participate in your brands is an experience, right? It's not something you don't buy a product. You just get immersed in the experience. But the way the idea behind your brands, the way they are constructed, they're in a very conflict with the definition of fashion we have nowadays. The fashion is all about consumption, production, buying things fast, getting new trends, being in a rush, and so on and so on. So the way you perceive fashion, the way you make your own brand, the way you see clothing and culture, I think it's something that redefines how fashion was defined for like 3 decades now, I would say, globally. Do you think that maybe the way you see fashion and clothing as part of human life, does it have a chance to redefine what we understand as fashion right now? Can it make this revolution we are dreaming of, you think? Is it, really something we can imagine as coming up? And do you see the change in the world that would enable fashion to really, really change? Because what you're talking about is something that, we all think it's necessary. The way capitalism now it's, I think very over the top and not very humane at all. And fashion started to express the need of great corporate companies, not of singular people. We don't really understand what fashion is for anymore, I think. And your brands, like smaller brands, family, friends, working together in a very specific location, producing clothes you can actually understand on the level of culture and existence, not on the level of products, is something I would welcome to fashion everywhere. But do you think it has a chance? You think that fashion changes in the way that, would enable how you work to be more popular, to be more understandable? How do you think? Or it's going to be niche and that's all, always on the margins? How do you, what do you hope for?
Well, in my opinion, if you asked me this 2 years ago, I would probably have to say that we still be preaching in the desert for a long time.
Yeah.
Fortunately, with COVID and the situation that we all live, as a global society, the fact that we all have to push the brake at least for a number of months. I think the idea that the entire world has been thinking at home, well, is this the way we should keep going? In my opinion, this is very personal. I guess part of us will think, well, yeah, it was just a break for 12 months. But I'm confident that part of society will think, well, maybe it's maybe there is a sign there. Maybe we need to really rethink if this is the right way to go forward. Maybe it's a bit too early to say, but I'm confident that at least a large part of society will start thinking a bit more if we can keep continuous way, not because they need to buy our garments, but at least ask questions in a more global. I mean, do I need to do is my life or is my life have to be the same as it was 2 years ago? Do I need to change some form? And in that sense, I think in relation with fashion, I think it will change. I'm absolutely positive, but I think it will take some time. And at least even if the worst case scenario, those two extremes, they need to live together in a bit more harmony. It cannot be so extreme. I mean, we cannot be the only ones preaching in the desert. We are too small, we are too little, and we are very few. But then the ones that don't preach on the desert and they are more global, they need to conquer. So I think we need to come a bit closer, because otherwise those two extremes, they generate a society that it's not in harmony. It's way, way, way too polarized. And as we know, not only in terms of fashion, but very polarized societies, don't they generate a lot of crisis, and we've been seeing that. I mean, not only in fashion, but in politics, and everything that is too polarized. I don't think it's a good sign, and probably in Poland is something that we see at the moment. So again, I don't want to get into politics. I want to say that it shouldn't be too polarized. I think we should try and take some some critical thinking of what we lived, what we faced in the last 2 years, and I'll be delightful not to be the ones preaching in the desert for too long. But we have done it for 5 decades, whereas more. But and I'll be happy to do it. But I love to again, in the same way that we have this conversation with Monica, have this conversation with a lot more people. I mean, in the same way that with music we can find a very small brand in some little town in South Africa. Well, fashion is the same idea. Why can we not find those brands and have a space for them? And we don't need to go to a 100,000 people concert. We can go to a Rolling Stones concert. That's fine. But what about the rest of the world? Do we need to do A or B? I mean, do we need a bit of more coexisting between the two? I think going back to your question, and in essence, I'm confident, but not because of what we believe on, but unfortunately because of what happened with COVID in the last year and a half.
You think it's only COVID or maybe climate crisis in general? Because fashion is the industry that's really harming the planet also,
Yeah, but I mean, when I mean COVID, I mean, obviously all the conversations that were there, but we talk about climate change for nearly 2 decades, but had never been taken seriously until now. So the question is, why is now more serious than 2 years ago? And I think it's what I call the push break. You face at home, you see that, well, can I take fewer flights? Can I live in a different way? So get the entire world thinking in some form, whether it's, obviously, we, as a society, we didn't have the same experience, but there's one fact that we cannot avoid, and it's that we were at home to a large extent for a number of days, weeks, and months. And I guess that lead us to think a bit more than we did in the past. The side effects, definitely climate change, I mean, probably politics, sustainability, transport, every single part of life has been readdressed up to the individual. Just the fact that we spend some time thinking, well, should we keep going this way?
Monica, how do you think the situation looks like in Poland? Do you think that the fashion is getting redefined in Poland? I think we are a very interesting market because we were, under communist regime till the 90s, and our fashion system, wasn't obvious to other developed countries living in democracies. And we are really at the very beginning, I would say, of building a market and really inventing ourselves. What's your opinion?
Yeah, it was like for a very long time, it wasn't really a fashion market in Poland, as you know. And now there are like many brands, and it's not like even like 10 years ago, like it was, I think it was like even more brands somehow. And not everyone survived, and it seemed easier like 10 years ago to establish and start something of your own. But if you're asking about like any predictions about the future, it's something that we are constantly asking ourselves, like how fashion business is going to look like. And I'm not sure if I have like any answer, if I am optimistic about it. Sometimes I try, but it's always like at the end of the day, and you mentioned like coronavirus and the lockdown. Like for us, it was the experience that like brought us like back to basics, and that we like before it was like, how can we like be more global, and like we're like very ambitious, and it was like very stressful. And like since like March from the last year, it was like that we just went to the studio, like we focused on our stories, we focused on our clients, and we also see like the people who are coming to the store, like they're asking like, what this garment is made of, is it organic, and how it was produced, like who produced it and where. So we see that people are like are more conscious about their choices, and they want like they don't want to like buy a lot anymore, but to buy like something that is like suitable for them. And yeah.
Okay. I was wondering whether I didn't see the questions. Are there some
Yeah,
questions in the chat? Because
there are two questions in the chat, I think.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that at all. I don't have it in my. Oh, now I see that. Yeah. Okay, so you see the question already?
Yeah.
Should I read it to you, or you already read that?
Well, the first question, from my understanding, it talks about leftovers, unsold pieces, and how we treat those. And the second question goes to someone is asking about internships. So if you want, I can answer both very quickly.
Okay, go on.
The first one, for us, everything is made by order. So unless someone cancels their order, we have very, very little stock. I mean, we run sometimes our pop-ups, but again, in essence, is run by order only. So we don't produce and then we sell. We produce based on the orders. So for us, that's an advantage because it minimizes the stock, which is very, very little compared to, to fashion standards. On the second one, we do take internships. Both Charo and Alfredo teach at the School of Fashion in the local university. And as Monica said before, they joined the academic part after spending a lot of time in fashion. But yes, we do take internships, and we are very welcome to receive any interest from anyone that is out there. But we do that on a regular basis, because some of their students, they come on board. So there is an ongoing conversation between, our brand and teaching. And as probably Monica has experienced, it makes our daily work very, very enriching. I think it's integral part of what we do. And I think they both love to be part of both the academic role and bringing people on board to tell them and share with them what, what we know and what we do.
There are no more questions, right? Oh, there is more. I can't see that on my screen,
my
small screen, unfortunately.
There is another one about does sustainability in the aspect of upcycling present your customer questions?
Okay. I can see them now. The one from Greg, right? This is the next question.
Yeah. I don't know if Monica wants to go into the other topic or.
I think that, Monica, do you have something to add maybe to the previous questions?
I'm trying
before we proceed.
About the internships. Yes, of course, we are also taking internships sometimes, because like we've got like very small space, so it's we are open for people coming and working with us, but we are not like a big corporation, so we've got like many space for it's someone who would like to become actually a very close member of our team, because all the interns that were taking internships in our studio, even for a short amount of time, but always be a part of the family, because everyone is working together on what's the most important now. And the question about sustainability and upcycling.
Yeah.
And actually, I am I love upcycling and recycling, and 4 years ago we did a denim collection, and it was our first experience in denim, and we weren't very about the result, and as I said, it was the first time, so we ordered too many pieces, and then we were terrified what we are going to do with this. So after 2 years, we've decided to take this whole stock out and make something new from the pieces. And it was a great decision. Like we were like very happy that the new models were better, that the clients liked them more, and that we didn't have to like throw it out, because I hate throwing out anything. So that like I'm like gathering like even small scratches, and sometimes they are used in next collections, and sometimes we are doing just one-off pieces just to do something interesting from what's left behind in our studio.
Thank you, Monica. We have a question from Greg, I think that hasn't been answered, from Caledonia University. I was just wondering, says Greg, if either brand adapted their business models during the pandemic, and how did you communicate with your customers during lockdown? So was it specific, the time of pandemic, for you? So, Jose? Mm-hmm.
Well, in the same way that in my presentation, I did not mention the technology part of the business. During pandemic, we did a big effort, especially creating what we call the digital showroom, the idea of having video conference, showing the collection to our clients and having a dialogue directly from them to us back in the workshop. So we did have to assess the fact that we could not move. Normally what we do is we do travel 2 times to 3 times per year, either to first or in this case to our store in Japan. But we did work with what we call the digital showroom, which is basically a series of lots of video, but with a real collection here. So we did work on that. It was a great experience. But as Monica said before, for us it only works if you know our process of the relationship that was there before. So the good part of it does maintain a relationship with our clients, but it's very difficult to generate a new relationship based on Zoom. That's, in our case, extremely difficult. The good side of it, that it has kept the relationship going with our clients and partners through, again, digital showrooms, 360s, all those tools that luckily are available to most of us.
So we were able to sustain your client base. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's mainly my point. It was easy to sustain, but I think it's difficult because to generate new clients, because as Monica said, it's really based on we do always need that first encounter with the garment to be able to feel it, to be some story, and with some that's difficult again because our garments are not, they're not fast fashion. You need that physical encounter, and luckily we are able to go back to our normal routines of being able to show our garments. Even in proximity, we do invite our clients to come to the factory, but we will probably back soon to where we used to be in the past.
Monica?
But some changes like in our business, like the first one that was that we couldn't go to any fabric fair, and I always loved this physical experience of discovering new textures. So, but happily we have like some mostly Portuguese and Italian companies that we are like friends with, so we could keep creating new things. And about like experience with clients, like we put more focus once on our online store, and the second part actually like in Poland, like all the department stores were closed, but small physical stores could be open. So for us, it gave us the new opportunity to meet new people who used, for example, to shop in department stores, and then they started just to scroll around the city and discover like small new places. So for us, it was actually very fortunate.
Yeah, these are the differences between the countries and the restrictions. Yeah. I also noticed that I overlooked one question before because it didn't appear on my small screen. So I'm going to go back to this question from Isabel. I think the two brands have a lot of emotion involved because they put communication first. Do you feel people buy your products in terms of belonging, appropriating the story or ideas who are incorporated into the garments? So like they become your fans or your support group, I would say. They not only feel connected to the clothing, but also to the values. Is it really like that?
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more on that. It's about belonging and being part of that community of those values. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more on that. I think it's definitely we talk about our clients are more of fans than clients. I think I don't know, the client is like a very, I don't know, something very simple, but a fan, I think there's an emotion into a fan. I mean, it's going back to the example that I put before about music. I mean, if you love a band, you're not a client of a band, you're a fan of a band. It goes way beyond just buying that record. You want to go to, well, what is the best album? Is this collection better than the past? Are you still doing this, but why have you stopped? So you're sort of digging into you and why, when, how. I mean, we love that. I mean, it's obviously but we love that ongoing conversation of a million questions of every little single detail, and because we can respond to those. I mean, even with someone mentioned about recycling, we manufacture in house. So all those questions that in large corporations someone may feel a bit strange on a presentation, for us, it's natural. I mean, it's the way we do it. We can just all we have to do is just tell the story of what we do. We don't need to invent things. It's just what we are. We can tell our fans.
I think it's very important what you're saying. It's not, some PR concept that you come up with. It's something that's very natural, as you said. It's emotional and it's authentic because it comes from the heart. And I'm sick of being a client of everything. Also, psychotherapy, you're a client everywhere. You're just a client, you buy a product. And I think it's a great time in history to try to change this narrative, as you're suggesting, not to be a client anymore, but, experience, to love something, to identify. There's not a lot of narratives like that, but like you said, it's changing. So, Monica, what about your fan base?
I think that maybe what I could add is if people are interested in us because of our stories, yes, in this it's one group, but actually we also like this moment of surprise because for us prints are storytelling tools, and we are designing them for every collection, and they're carrier of meaning, what the collection is about. But I also like when someone is just attracted to the pattern, attracted to this visual part or material part of the clothes, and then because it's mostly she, can explore more, but it's not like that she has to know what the collection is about. Sometimes it's just more intuitive, and it's also inspiring. And if someone just loves the clothes and just doesn't go very deeply in what the story of the collection is, because it's just also very bodily experience. So it's also very important.
You're both brands and both the creators, you yourselves are involved in the academia. You experience the educational system also when it comes to fashion and designing. And as I'm listening to you, I wonder whether it's not necessary to change the way we educate, we create designers today, because I think there's a lot of various fields required to understand what fashion is today. Not only how to design a dress, but also, cultural studies, identity, ethnology. You have to be more diverse or more eloquent in today's culture, I would say, to change fashion, because it's not, about aesthetics anymore, I would say. Do you have some opinions on how to educate designers or how to educate the audience maybe in what fashion is, what has to change, or maybe nothing? What's your opinion on that?
Monica, if you don't mind, I left you with this one and I'll ask them, because I don't teach, they do teach.
Yeah, so. I know they do teach, yes.
un poco cómo pensáis que se tiene que educar a los nuevos diseñadores, ¿no? En este momento, si tenéis alguna opinión o punto de vista en cómo educar a esos futuros diseñadores. But Monica, while they'll think, if you want to maybe have your opinion on that.
In the meantime, actually, I am not a taught designer because I studied art history, and then I did some internships. I took up some courses in pattern making, but I don't have like much knowledge about how fashion is taught because it's like for me it was like a mix of my cultural studies that were like that are like still like the most important part of me as a designer because that gave me a background and something that like still drives me. The second part, like this business part and technical part, was something that I learned later myself. And like I think that today to be a designer, especially if you want to run your own brand and not work as a designer for someone, you have to know these three things. So you have to know who you are as a designer and what do you want to make your fashion about. But you also have to educate yourself in like this business part, and you have to educate yourself in like technical things because fashion is like, it's like very technical knowledge. So they're like these three areas that somehow you have to mix together and pay attention to all three of them.
I think Jose is not ready yet. What about people in Poland, Monica? Maybe you cannot comment upon that. Do you think they're prepared to understand what your brand is proposing? You said that there are different levels to the brand, intellectual and but also the intuitive level. Maybe that's the key.
Yeah, and I'm like very appreciative to this intuitive aspect of communication. I think that's because it's like more natural and at the beginning it was like that we are admired like for being so ambitious, and actually I like the place where we are now much more because it's like about honest communication and that someone likes something, loves something, that it gives like this, I don't know, physical pleasure or gives strength. So it's not so much verbal and not so intellectual, but it's like it's more intimate.
Jose, are you ready?
Yeah, sorry for the delay, but because we had the fact that both pages, they have different opinions. It was like an ongoing debate, and then I have to translate. But in essence, I think if I have to synthesize what they took up, the two main key points, I think on one hand is the idea as an individual, as a designer, being able to have a critical vision, a critical language as an individual, as a designer. But then on the other hand, I think probably stop the whole idea of educating the designer and his ego as the designer. I think there was up to now, I think it was this all idea that the designer was an individual per se. So I think even though it sounds like a contradiction, I think like there's a bigger role of the designer as a group, as the role they play in society. Can we do brands as a designer, just one designer? Do we need to think in a more group idea or social idea? So what I'm trying to say is have your own opinion and your critical education on what's your vision. What do you think is the right thing? What do you think is the right idea? That's very important. But on a larger scale, probably being part of a group, not just the ego that traditionally speaking was, when you, for example, as an architect, and I'm speaking for myself, we always were taught about the legends, the great architects. But I mean, there's no space in the world for so many legends, and we're not going to be all legends. So, I mean, as a society, as a group, I mean, can we is there a creative role that goes beyond the idea of just the designer? So I think in today's society, maybe we need to bring the scope to a different arena, I think. But it goes in essence with what they said. But again, I had to minimize because we had the debate, unfortunately, in Spanish, and I cannot translate at the same
because
time.
for me it's very, very interesting, this kind of friction, this change from the ego focused, thinking about what being a designer is all about, to the role of the designer is something that someone who is helping the society work, because whose work is very pretty much like medical care. It's fashion care, right? You care to others people's needs, you attend to them. It's something I see that is changing today. But also I think maybe what is changing is this notion of how fashion works. That is not the great creation of a single person, but it's a creation of a collective.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe should be like that. Monica, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like here in Acephala, I am designer, but it doesn't mean that I am like sitting in Atelier and like creating anything like in the void, because it's like always a part of discussion. Not only with Bartek, but with the girls in our studio, and talking to family, talking to friends, talking to clients. It's like what the collection actually becomes. It's like it's an effect like of many trials, many discussions, and it would never happen without these interactions.
I suppose that in DJUA you have a lot of discussions because you're a family, friends, collective, been at the same through the years, and I'm very, very interested in your creative process.
Well, unfortunately, we have way too many, because having obviously the three of us being part of Latin society and being family, I think there are two layers, being friendship, family, and passion, and you put all that together. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of discussions. But I have to say that it's always an ongoing process, and the discussions of the topics, our reviews, they're always, in a way, we all know what the other person's strengths and weaknesses are, and it comes back to what I said before. Even though we still have many, many discussions, I think this is what makes our project keep evolving every season. I think if we don't have discussions, then we should worry about our business, our brand. So that ongoing discussion is what keeps every collection different and every season different from the previous one. So in the same way that is very time consuming, and definitely there are a lot of discussions, I think what generates the energy to get it going for so many years. But yes, we do have loads of discussions.
But the shift I was mentioning also is about the definition of fashion. We are talking about storytelling. We are talking about understanding a local, the spirit of the place. So we're talking about what you always underline, the lifestyle. What do you mean by that?
Well, by discussion, I mean that obviously at the point of view, this is like as you said before, as a collective. Charo comes from, her strength is more on fashion. The idea that it has to look good, it has to feel well. And obviously Alfredo comes more from the graphic design. So at the end of the day, you're putting different inputs, and in every collection, it has different degrees of that input. It could be more graphic and not so, or maybe easy wearing. So it's like a recipe. Do you put more of what ingredients? Do you want to, and also, what's the story about? Is it about nature? Is it about things we like? It really depends on how much do you put of. Coming back to what I said about the academics, of the different visions and egos as well. At the end of the day, we all have to have a saying of what we like. But that's what I mean. That discussion is not just the fact that that's my opinion. It's about what's the input that each of us puts into that collection. And obviously, the good thing about having collections made so often is that obviously that story keeps changing and evolving. But again, those discussions are not free. It's about what do we want to tell, how do we want to tell it, and how do we want to perform that collection. So that's what I mean by discussion. It's not just by shouting at each other, but it's the right one. It's about always fine tuning that little extra bit before it goes. It leaves our workshop. That's what I mean by discussion. Always try to fine tune that extra bit of what we do.
This is the very important thing. It's about brainstorming, not, creating the strategy that's very, product-like. You always underline that a part of creating a lifestyle. Your studio is a laboratory, right? It's a place of experiment.
Yes. Absolutely, and and it goes back to what Monica said about having this conversation with our fans. I think the studio where we are based, that's where everything is generated, and that's where most debates are. All of our trips, not only in Japan, but people coming to our studio. For us, that's very, very positive, because that's really where you can see the energy of what we tell events. And even what your question before about COVID, I think it opened our doors to a larger extent. Obviously, when you go to a meeting, it's you see each other physically. But the good side effect of COVID is that we had to open the doors of our factory, of our design process, of everything we do to a further extent. So in a way, I think we were able to explain more remotely, but to a larger extent to what we did in the past, because we had to open our doors to literally the factory, to literally the people that did that garment. So I think in a way, that's probably one of the few good side effects of having to communicate remotely through a digital interface.
Yeah. Monica, I think that also Acephala is very much a lifestyle brand, and because you comment upon LGBTQ issues, women's issues, as you mentioned, and your recent collection is very interesting. Maybe you could say a bit about that, because it's about fashion tribes in general, right? So it's also about local mentality, I would say. It's not about geographical location, but it's all about what's your group, what's your fan base.
Yeah, actually, thank you for mentioning this. Our last collection is called One is Infinity, and the concept was like that we wanted to underline that there is no one perfect ideal vision of femininity, that there is that even identity is not only singular or one layer, and that there are no clothes that should be just for one occasion and for just one use. So it was we were playing with these ideas that one actually is many, as it's plentitude. And we made an experimental campaign that was inspired on the one hand by Cindy Sherman, so putting on different identities and trying them on and leaving them on. But actually it was also inspired by just our clients and surprises in our who could be our client, because we created kind of 5 personas that represent different sociological types, but also different layers of personality. And we wanted to show that the same garment, depending on who is wearing this and what it's put together with, can become something totally different. So that there are not things that are just for one occasion and for once, that they can just help your personality to be expressed and not be something that's the most important thing about yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, I found it interesting because we were wondering how to translate the locality into global fashion world, and I think that maybe nowadays that what the global is what is positive about globality is that you can find your tribe anywhere, at the very end of the world. In Japan, someone can understand all about Galicia, and maybe someone from, I don't know, Africa can understand something from Warsaw. This somehow more open, and it gives you hope that maybe people can attract each other from the very far, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I guess there was a time where the process was exactly the opposite. We all wanted to be super urban, so we wanted to have a bit of New York and a bit of London. So the entire world wanted to be a part of the urbanity. Ironically now, I think,
Yeah.
luckily, things has changed, and I think we are part. We want to be part of, definitely not that. I think that's not trendy anymore to be part of just those 2-3 main core.
That's that decentralization. That's very important. What you mentioned, that you don't have to be in the center of this, fashion world. There's no such a thing like that anymore. I think my last question, because we're running out of time slowly but surely. So I encourage everyone once again to ask the questions if you have them. Now is the right moment. And my question, I think last question. Oh, there's another question. Okay, great. But after my question, then my question would be about the support. Do you receive any support from the government, from the locals, any regional culture support, anything that, apart from just selling your garments, that enables you to function properly? Do you think like you're, welcomed in your country or region in a way, appreciated, from various angles, of course? I don't know who'd like to answer first. Monica, maybe? You look like you're thinking about something.
Yeah. Like I think about support from governments. I think it's tricky. Like in Poland, we do not have any fashion organization which would support fashion careers and fashion brands. So it's more about like building your support system yourself, and it's and not only your mental support, but also this community which can be very supportive. And for us, maybe it's not very financial support, but in our district, we are actually the part of this community. Our neighbors are discussing our window displays and coming here, but they are also coming to have small adjustments in the usual clothes. So when we are not busy with something big, we're also helping people around with their fashion emergencies. So, but I wish that fashion in Poland was considered something that was worth to invest in, as something that could promote Poland abroad, and maybe it will happen one day.
Fingers crossed. What about Spain then, or
well, in our case,
the region?
I think we do receive some support, but we see that, let's say, the political support as an extra push, but we try not to rely on that. I mean, as Monica said, our biggest support is our community. It's always there, and we won't change because of the politician of the grant and so on. So that's something you can rely on. The grants, I think, obviously, for any small business like ours, is an extra push. My only add to that is, I think, in the future, I think only probably European brands of our size coming together, we can have a bigger say into this, because again, isolated in Poland, in Portugal, in different countries, we are too small. But as we know in social media, too many too small, can make something bigger. So I see an opportunity there to maybe try and have a say by just getting together as a group. But because unfortunately, from the top bottom approach, it's by the time it reaches smaller, the grants and reaching small brands, it's difficult. And as you probably know, and if it's the same thing in Poland, managing grants and applications, it's very, very time consuming. I don't think in general standards, the person that wrote the, sort of the base of the study, they were not brief, or they were not written for smaller brands. Definitely but again, the question is, yes, we do receive them. For us, it's a push. It's not our base it's a little kick on our, on long road. But as I completely agree with Monica, the community does the always present and ongoing support. But again, obviously, any brand would love to have and just that extra push, be able to go to different places. That's great. And again, as I said, let's get together. I think we need to do more among ourselves.
I like this. I like the spirit. Great. I would actually love to see this coalition of small brands, local brands. That would be so great.
Global guerrilla.
So the last question is from Joanna or Johanna. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, but the question was asked a while ago, but it didn't appear anywhere, unfortunately. But I see it now, and the question is. It is very interesting that you found a connection with Japan. In some way, it sounds like your company, your story, your values and garments have found some locality there. How do you experience and feel that connected locality? I think that we already answered that somehow, that question, or maybe you would like to add something, Jose?
Well, I think at the end, ironically, even though that we have our store in Tokyo, it has created a small community as well. So I think it goes back to this idea of when I said before, well, we don't look no longer at urban, but it's true that when you have 20 million people in Tokyo and you have a small community, you need to go to obviously to places where you can, I wouldn't say urban, but places where that way of thinking it's more mature, where you have obviously with 20 million people, you're gonna have millions of different ways of saying things, and that's where urbanity it's positive because but the relationship is still being very very small community every time. I mean, not now with COVID, but we used to go 2 times a year that we are where we see our fan base, we have a little parties, but that community ironically is pretty much the same size that we have in Galicia. It's not tons of people. It's a small community with name and surname, and that's what we do here. The only thing is that, as I said before, we need those pockets, those little communities, to be global enough to keep us supporting. It goes back to your previous question. Who's your support? Your community. Is enough your local community? Unfortunately, no, it's not big enough. We need to expand that to a global niche community to be able to keep being local. At the end of the day, being global is the only, as I said a number of times today, is the only way forward for us to keep surviving for another 50 years. It's the only way, at least, that I see today.
Yes, but what we have to come up with is the way to become global without sacrificing, the values, right? And the qualities that you have. That's the main challenge.
Exactly. Absolutely.
But I would like to end this discussion with on a positive note. So we talked about the challenges, the way that we can change fashion systems today, and what should be done, etc. But I would like to ask you about the blessings. What's the most, let's say, what's the biggest gratification? What makes you happy about what you do the most? What's the most wonderful thing? Just to encourage designers or audiences, it's a great thing to do with your life.
Well, especially when you dedicate for smaller brands, it's not Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It's 24/7, Monday to Sunday. So unless you have that gratification every now and then, we wouldn't be able to keep going for so long. So it's a necessity to really have a bit of that or glimpses of that positivity to spend such a long, and so much energy and a lot of time into something that runs, as Monica said before. I mean, we don't live on the factory or we don't live in the store, like Monica said, but we are here a long time. So you do need a lot of positivity to keep going. And again, I know it sounds a bit marketingian, but it goes back to the people you do the collections for, because I mean, you do need that.
Creo que tuvimos también un poco la suerte de poder continuar con un proyecto familiar y a su vez pasar un poco el testigo a las nuevas generaciones. Creo que nuestra posición es muy afortunada.
Well, what Terry says, it comes from a different perspective. The fact that we were also very lucky to be able to have given this opportunity by our parents before. So passing that baton on time, it's something that we're very lucky. And I mean, we probably in the next few decades, we have to think, how do we pass that into the next generation, where it's, so in that sense, I think, I know it's not exactly your question, but I think it relates back to.
That's important.
Being, not only being supported by other people, but also being supported by the ones that have started, this business before we took it on board.
A family business based on different kind of relationships It's not like a business that's devoid of this kind of emotions or decisions. So yeah. Monica, what about your blessings, or why you are happy with this career? Because I suppose you are. You've been doing it for a few years now.
Yeah. Even if, like, I am very often frustrated with all the business aspects and marketing aspects that I don't feel that I fully understand them, and they're like my thing. But something that like keeps me going is nothing more than just that. Actually, I just love the process of creation. And it's like always when I think that, oh no, I just cannot do it anymore. It's like if I've got some new idea, or I want to check something or to explore something, it's like I'm always happy. And like this process of inventing things and creating things is like something that drives me.
Okay, so I think it's it's almost 11. We have to take a break now. So unfortunately, I have many, many questions for you. I have to say goodbye and thank you. And good luck to you with your brands and your work. You are really wonderful. And Alfredo, can you show your face to the camera? Because okay, yes, thank you. So thank you. Wonderful trio, D-Duo, creating, keep up the good work. I would really love to buy something from you, really. It's just beautiful, beautiful. Really touching. Monica, thank you so much. Acephala, D-Duo, 2 brands, one from Poland, one from Spain, Warsaw. And A Coruña, can you tell the name of the village once again that you're working in?
Riancho. It's a bit
yes, thank you so much. That's very important too.
Thanks for your time. It has been a pleasure. So we'll definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Enjoy the conference the rest of the day. And I say thank you. Thank you for the audience, for the questions.
Bye.
We wait. Bye bye.